Welcome to everyone for our first MassMEDIC virtual town hall of 2021. I know we're all very excited and it's so thrilling to see all of you again. I'm Rachel Robinson, Vice President of MassMEDIC, and we want to thank you for your continued support of this program. We could not do what we do without all of you joining in regularly and without our fantastic sponsors. So thank you all, and we know you're going to get a ton out of this program. So just a few housekeeping notes to remember before we get started. Please do keep yourself on mute so we limit background noise. And questions are highly encouraged, as always. Please pump them into the chat at the bottom of the screen, and we'll be running Q&A with each of our speakers, as well as we'll try to leave a little bit of extra time at the end in case we miss anything. But we do have an incredibly full program with a few rapid fire presentations today, so I am going to go ahead and kick things over to Brian Johnson to introduce our first speaker.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to MassMEDIC's virtual town hall, our first one of 2021. The air smells different. Everything tastes better. The world is brighter. Everything's changed. It's 2021. And even if we're all still formal up top, casual on the bottom, I'm gonna go forward and say this is going to be an amazing year. One of the ways in which I'm really looking forward to today's presentation is we have an appearance from our esteemed congressman from the 4th District. He was newly elected this fall. He's a friend. He's a fellow guy from Newton, which always makes me like people. And I'm just really excited to have him with us, Congressman Jake Auchincloss. Mr. Congressman, it's a pleasure to first address you as that. Welcome to the MassMEDIC Town Hall. Please address some of your constituents.
Ryan, thank you so much for inviting me on. It's good to see you again. As you said, I'm very honored to call you a friend, and I'm also seeing some friendly faces on this panel right now. I want to particularly say hi to Amy Siegel, who I've known for years. We rode the train together, the Framingham and Worcester line into Boston many a day, and it's just wonderful to see Amy. I've been looking forward to this. This is as close as I get as getting to engage in the family profession. My whole family is in healthcare and the life sciences. Mom, dad, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles. Growing up, our kitchen table was about research grants and innovation and clinical care. My dad is Tony Fauci's #2. My mom runs the Dana-Farber. My brother is a thoracic surgeon and actually has gotten very involved in robotic surgery using many of the products that many of the companies here have helped advance. So I know viscerally, I know from my own family, I know from growing up here in Massachusetts that the medtech industry is one of the core beating hearts of our economy. And I really want to emphasize that you have in me, not just an ally, not just somebody who might vote the right way on issues that come up, but an active champion. We are going to rebound as a Commonwealth. We are going to have a new roaring 20s as a Commonwealth on the back of the life sciences and medtech industries. I mean that wholeheartedly. It can't be done alone by the private sector. It needs public support, needs support from academic research, and needs support from state and local leaders, but it is going to be done with medtech and life sciences, private sector as the tip of the spear. And my job in this is to represent your values and interests in Washington, D.C., that medical technology is a public service that improves quality of life and that should be fostered. It is to advance your priorities, whether we're talking about, preventing new and damaging taxes on specific categories, or about investing in the types of infrastructure and workforce development that are critical for your businesses. And then finally, it's about serving the district. It's about being somebody who can be the first phone call for your heads of government relations or for the executive suite on anything that affects your workforce or affects your ability to do business in this state, whether we're talking about immigration issues or state and local permitting issues. Anytime where having somebody who can make phone calls and help bring people together to get things done would be useful, I hope that you consider my office a first phone call there, because your success is the state's success, and your success is my success, and we are in this together. So please consider me somebody who wants to really be involved in the conversation. I've got tremendous relationships and contacts in the biopharma space in Massachusetts, and they're not shy. They're not shy. And I would really encourage MedTech to be just as assertive in putting forward your interest and reaching out to my office. And I think now is an incredibly timely moment for that. And the reason I say that is I'm a big believer that in politics, you've got to find and forecast waves that are coming and make sure that you can ride those waves and capitalize on them for the best interests of your constituents. And I see two big waves coming right now. One is investment in infrastructure. It seems like the only thing we can agree on in Washington, D.C. right now is an infrastructure package should be done in this fiscal year. And the second big wave I see is a deeper appreciation for and cultivation of life sciences and medical technology as a source of domestic economic strength. I cannot tell you how many investors and real estate developers and constituents and state and local officials I talk to who are so eager to foster exactly what you all do every day. People recognize that it's not just an engine of economic prosperity for the state, but it's also increasingly a source of security for the country and for the Commonwealth. So let's ride those two waves together, and let's do it with strong cross-sectoral partnerships. And please think of me as someone who's going to be at the locus of those partnerships and helps drive the industry forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Mr. Congressman, can I just ask you a few questions here, maybe to tee it up? And I know, Rachel, if some questions come in on the chat, feel free to jump in ahead of me. But let's start with, one of your first days on the job was January 6th, and you are a Marine, a former Marine, a veteran of Afghanistan. And I have to find out from your perspective what that was like for you, from both, the perspective of somebody who is, serving their country as an elected leader, but also as somebody who fought to defend the freedoms of this country, to see a hallmark of our democracy overrun by angry mobs seeking to tear it down. What was that like for you?
Yeah, one of my colleagues pointed out that our first Wednesday in office was insurrection. Our second Wednesday was an impeachment. Our third Wednesday was an inauguration. So yesterday was my fourth Wednesday. I just called in sick to Congress. I don't know what to expect. But in seriousness, it was, I think in retrospect, January 6th will be viewed as the nadir, the low point of our Trumpian politics of the last 4 years. It was when all of the worst aspects of the American character became real and actual and concrete in one place at one time for everybody to watch. And it was a disgrace. I hope it can also be cathartic in that, having seen the mob in its fury and with the elements of white supremacy that were so clearly there, that this country can start to recognize that that's not who we are and move forward. Congress did part of that by going back that night and certifying the Electoral College results. We did part of that by impeaching this president. The Senate needs to fulfill its obligation by convicting him. They won't. We now need to recognize that before there can be unity, which I know the president has declared to be his overarching goal, there needs to be a commitment to truth. We've been swimming in lies for 4 years, and it's so damaging to our civic dialogue and our health as a country. We have got to ground ourselves in facts, truth, and information. And by committing to do that on both sides of the aisle, by committing to represent and to speak with our constituents with integrity, we can start to come back to a place of unity, but truth first, then unity.
Thank you for those comments. I think also, just to echo what you said earlier in your remarks, interaction between engagement from our communities to your office is so critical, because you are a representative of the interests of your district. The 4th district is full of med tech companies who are big employers who support families. I just want to help people understand what's the best way to engage with your office. Is there issues that are like, should they feel like I have to have a major issue? Should I understand policy? Should I know, do I need to be talking about something very broad? I mean, how should they engage with you? And is there some sort of criteria for them to talk to their congressional representative?
I'm a former product manager in the tech space for about 4 years. And one of the cardinal rules of being a good product manager is that customers are experts on their problems and you need to become an expert on the solution. But you don't go out there and ask customers to architect their own solutions. And I view sort of the same way as my role in constituent services with this industry. It's my job to figure out the politics, and it's my job in concert with others to help figure out the policy. So there should be a very low barrier to entry to come and talk to our office. If you have a problem, and that's obviously where your knowledge base is going to be, is helping to craft the problem in a way that's digestible for my office and for me, and then let us help work on the solution with you. And if people would rather do that through you, Brian, or do that directly from their company to my office, that is entirely up to them.
Great. I know there's some questions that have come in. Rachel, can you field them?
Sure thing, absolutely. So first question is around the China tariffs. So obviously if you manufacture in Massachusetts, the China tariffs are increasing costs and giving advantages to other regions. Do you see this potentially being evaluated, and do you have a position on that?
The China tariffs were, I mean, the list is so long with the administration, but they were one of the dumbest things that this administration did, in that it tried to fight a skirmish with China in a way that ended up redounding to the detriment of American consumers and American manufacturers and businesses. I do not like the China tariffs at all. I would hope that we will strongly reconsider them, and I would certainly be an active member of doing that in Congress. I don't know what the Biden administration's disposition is towards that right now. I think, you know, for better or for worse, it's sort of a separate conversation. Trump's administration did reset a lot of political viewpoints on China. And I think the Biden administration probably is figuring out what parts they want to keep and what parts they want to start afresh on.
Absolutely. Just one other comment about Medicare reimbursement policies. Obviously, it's a tough road to navigate, and it's something that our companies would really love your support on, and they're just saying they hope they can reach out to you and discuss, you know, some of those issues, because that's a big concern.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned this. My mom runs the Dana-Farber, and Medicare reimbursement is a big deal, and it comes to our kitchen table a lot. So I am understanding of how much that affects bottom lines.
That's all we have from the audience, Brian, if you have anything else.
Yeah, Congressman, maybe you could help us. The rescue package, I think it's a $1.9 trillion rescue package that the administration is putting on the table before Congress. Any way that we can sort of understand what likelihood that has of passing through the House and the Senate?
I think something is likely to pass, not something that big. The administration has said that they want this to be bipartisan. $1.9 trillion will not be bipartisan. Of that, I am quite confident. It would have to be scoped to be smaller for it to be bipartisan. And probably the areas that would be scoped, although I don't know this for sure, would be on the amount and the number of individuals to whom relief is directed.
So, and just please remember to put yourself on mute. You know, we've read, you know, hospitals have lost a tremendous amount of money through the shutdowns on elective procedures. You know, I can't stress enough how important it is that, you know, this whole system be maintained. I mean, how top of mind is the healthcare ecosystem on your colleagues' minds? I mean, we have to make sure that we get those procedures back up, and we get this pipeline going.
Hospitals, med tech, patients, everybody is suffering because these elective procedures have been delayed. And again, this is something that is not just political and professional for me, but personal as well. My brother's a thoracic surgeon, and we talk often about the impact that's having on his own practice. We need to get people back in. We need to resume normal life as soon as possible. The overarching way we're going to do that is with vaccinations, of course. And that's been a major focus of mine. 100,000 doses a week in February is not enough for Massachusetts. It's not enough. We need more than that. We need to be scaling up the manufacturing to the extent that we can, and I know that there's a lot of bottlenecks there. We need to be, and we need Johnson & Johnson's approval to come through so that they can provide their 1 billion shots.
Right.
We
Um,
actually have a
I
few
know we have a
questions.
couple more, so let's see if we can answer these in a quick fashion. So,
Yeah,
Rachel, do you want to plow through them?
just one very quickly about infrastructure spending for Massachusetts. So some questions around the workforce, housing, transportation. What are your thoughts on that?
The priorities for me are going to be transportation and workforce development. And the workforce development can be cross-sectoral. I think that really works best, as we've seen in other parts of the state, like Gloucester or Lawrence. Really works best when you've got the local academic community, the local business community, employers, state and local officials, all on board. And I'm already starting to do some of that convening. The infrastructure funding, that's a little bit more top-down. And I am on 3 of the subcommittees for transportation and infrastructure, and I just want people to be assured I'll be fighting for every dollar that we can get from Massachusetts, specifically for rail, bus, and micromobility. All these things improve people's access to jobs and services.
So we'll do a couple very, very quick ones because I know you're short on time. Do you foresee Trump's executive order on the L1 H1 visa freezing being lifted? Obviously, that's a concern for Massachusetts companies.
I don't have insight into that directly. My office I'll have my office look into that and get back to Brian. I will just say I'm a huge supporter of more immigration. It's good for Massachusetts. It's the right thing to do as a country.
And if folks want to reach out to your office, email is the best option?
Yeah, let me put my district director's email in here.
Perfect. And I think that's probably what we have time for, Brian. I don't know if you have any other ones, but I think we're running right on time.
I think there was just one question specifically about Massachusetts vaccine policy. Maybe we can let Melissa, I know you asked that. If you want to jump off mute real quick, you can do that.
Real quick, thank you, Rachel. So first of all, wonderful to see you again. And I know Mike is thrilled to pieces that you're there. I will say with respect to the vaccine policy, I know a lot of our companies have been collaborating to how we can best help get, shots in arms. How do we prioritize it? I know Massachusetts hasn't been hitting it out of the park in terms of the ranking of the United States and the different states. I think we just wanted, as a community, to let you know that we're working on this. Maybe we can tap into you. I know they've recently issued some guidance, and one positive development for this community, that's actually many of our employees are in hospitals, and they're actually creating part of the supply chain that's delivering vaccine or treatment. The Massachusetts did revise its guidelines to more specifically address our patients and our workers, which has been really great. So we give the Baker administration some accolades for making that positive change. But we still are seeing some stymied efforts, and this is more of a state rather than a federal issue, but it's a Massachusetts issue. So I think we just wanted to raise it. I know they're working to get more supply, but I wouldn't give it an A+ in terms of how it's been unfolding to date. And we, I think, all on the call want to be part of the solution, but just wanted to flag that for you. And I know Brian was very engaged in helping us get at least some of our workers that are touching the vaccine identified. And so we're pleased with that progress, but I think there's more to do.
Strong agree.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Congressman, for your first appearance on the MassMEDIC Town Hall. Let's make sure we do this regularly. I couldn't be more pleased by this development. I remember, first talking to you when you were running, and just I was very refreshed by your background, your commitment to this industry, your commitment to service. I thank you for that. Your past service in the military, now your current service as our representative. As a resident of your district, I'm so glad you are representing us. Thank you for being with us today.
Brian, thanks for having me. Be well, everybody.
Take care. So Rachel, I know that next up is it a quick update on the vaccine?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to keep this pretty high level, guys, because I know that Melissa did sort of tease it out a little bit. So medical supply chain workers are eligible for phase 2 of the vaccine, which is set to start in February 1st. Of course, the state has moved people ages 75 and up, and then people ages 65 up ahead of us in the priority line. We are a bit of an older state, so that probably does push back when we can get shots in arms for our workers back a few weeks. They did add more granularity on what a medical supply chain worker is. I agree with all their distinctions. It's still very, very broad and should cover 95% of our industry. I've sent out a few instructions. The state is encouraging employers to set up vaccination clinics. They're asking us to apply. If you have 200 or more employees, you can apply directly to the state to become a vaccination clinic. And when the time comes and supply is met, everything is a caveat. They will ship supply directly to your company after you've been approved as a setup as a vaccination center. They're also allowing companies of under 200 to apply together, as long as they can add up to 200 or 400. The reason the 200 number exists is because of the lots in which the Moderna vaccine comes in. It comes in sort of groups of 200. No clarity in terms of the spirit of this is to make sure that we cover our workers who are dealing with and on the manufacturing floor, who are need to be keep the lines up to service the second surge that we're facing across the country. That I think that's the spirit of it, although they really have not made much in terms of very granular about who at your company can receive the vaccine. I would say common sense prevails in this circumstance. Vaccinate the people most in need, but I think we're all going to need to get shots in arms at some point. It is an ever-evolving situation, so I really recommend every Tuesday and Thursday to check the Massachusetts website, the COVID vaccine website on Massachusetts. They constantly will be updating phase 2. If phase 1 is any indication, what will happen is they're going to go through this grouping, and then they'll sort of increase information as your groups come up. Again, if you are over 65 or over 75, you are going to be eligible anyways, pretty much starting now. So you can get that on your own at one of the state clinics or through your primary care provider. And then any of your in-hospital staff can go to a state-run facility like at Gillette Stadium and go ahead and get your shot now. So we're continuing to work on this. We are doing our best to get the information out as fast as possible. It's always changing, but I just wanted to make sure you understood, getting that distinction on phase 2 took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of cooperation, took a lot of engagement, and we have to keep it up. We can't just stop here at the vaccine. Let's take the momentum we have now, and let's really start helping shape policy that will be advantageous for keeping the innovation engine of this Commonwealth high in terms of med tech. But I'm done talking about this stuff. I'm going to turn it over to the rest of our program.
Hey, Brian, before we do that, could I just ask a quick question or throw out maybe a crazy idea? But is there a way for you and Rachel and MassMEDIC to become a convener for many of your small company members, where one of us offers our facility as a vaccination site, but we convened under MassMEDIC?
Martha, we've done a lot of thinking about that, I think, and we've done a lot of thinking in conjunction with our partners at MassBio about that. Our concern is that we don't have we're not going to have the ability to really do a great job on that. So we'll do some sort of help if you need to connect to a company in your region, but we're going to stay a little bit arm's length on this in terms of being a direct convener, but we can help on one, very specific cases.
Yeah, I figured you guys had already thought through that, but thought I'd ask the question.
Yeah, we'd love to. It's just, it's a pretty massive undertaking, and we don't want to inadvertently have something done that results in people not getting the shot.
Yeah.
I will say, if you're doing the application, just get it in. Don't worry about it being perfect. The state will help you finish up the process.
So Brian, on that, not to derail it all on this topic, but we're a relatively large employer at Zoll, and we'd be happy to apply, but in reading the document, it seems to me like unless you're a healthcare provider, you're not set up to do this. Am I missing something in this? Is there another company out here that's figured it out and is moving forward on it?
No, I think you're just referring to the website of MIIS, the one that they ask you to apply to. That website has not been updated. They say to apply as a medical provider, and the questions that do not apply to you, do not answer, just push through. Answer what you can.
But it sounds like you have to have deep freezer storage capability and be able to monitor employees post injection. I mean, there's a lot of
There is a
risk requirements.
Yeah, there's a point of contact at the state, so I can send it to you for specific questions.
Okay.
So that we do have a point of contact at the state, so we can funnel those through to her. But I think they want to get as many big employers to apply as possible, and they can work with you to figure out the rest if you need to rent a refrigeration or things like that.
Great. Okay, then I think we are ready to move on to the next part of the program. Thank you, Ryan, for those updates. And before we switch gears a little bit, I did just want to make one quick plug for an upcoming MassMEDIC event. Many of you have been following our MassMEDIC Ignite program, which is our cohort for startups. We are in our selection process of choosing who will win this year's competition, and we'll be culminating that on February 24th with an event. In the meantime, we do need your support and your votes to pick our 6th finalist. Our companies are doing an outstanding job this year, and we would love all of your input on that. So we'll put a link in the chat for you to take a look at, but I just want to make that quick little plug before we switch gears. So at this point, I would like to turn things over to Brandon Henning from Greenlight Guru, and I have to stop and say thank you. Huge support from Greenlight Guru is a sponsor for this year's town hall, and we could not do what we do without them. So Brandon, I'm going to turn this over to you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so everyone can see the presentation here first. So hopefully everyone can see that. Okay. Are we good?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, great. So thank you for having me today. Brandon Henning, Vice President of Product Management here at Greenlight. Fairly new to the Greenlight organization, but in terms of experience around quality and medical device and manufacturing, I've spent the better part of the last 15 or so years either working in product development, manufacturing, or quality in medical device, or working for vendors that specifically develop software that is designed to support product development and quality organizations within those companies. So I've been doing this for quite a while now. So happy to be here today and glad that I could share the results. So today what I'll be discussing is the state of quality management based on a survey of roughly over 300 global medical device quality and product development professionals that we executed just a time back. So through the presentation today, I'll be sharing some insights into industry trends, recommended best practices, and suggestions for improving quality in the product development process. Before I get started though, I would like to take a minute just to introduce Greenlight Guru and what it is exactly that we do. So if you've heard from us before, you might know that improving the quality of life is our mission here at Greenlight Guru, very similar to the mission that many of you have. And anything we can do as an organization that helps device makers bring safer, life-changing devices to market quicker and with less risk really aligns with our mission, which is why we're glad to be a sponsor of the town halls, because it really does make a difference, and we really do want to be part of the impact that everyone here has on changing the world as you're bringing new devices to market. And we're consistently looking for ways to fill that mission. If you'd like to learn more about why medical device companies from across the globe are moving away from paper and some of the things that we're going to discuss today that we saw in the trends and adopting more purpose-built medical device manufacturing, quality management, and process and product design systems, I would encourage you to visit our website at greenlightguru.com. But otherwise, that's all I'm going to say about that today. And now I'd like to jump in and talk about what we're going to be covering. So what we're going to cover today are some critical benchmarks and key findings that surface themselves through the survey. What we learned in terms of the survey, in terms of how market leading companies are staying ahead, and where the suggestions came through in terms of focus for 2021. So first off, some critical industry benchmarks. And I think it would be hard to talk about critical industry benchmarks today without talking about some of what the survey brought out and what some of you said in terms of how the industry is weathering the COVID-19 pandemic. and the current impacts and what we're looking at as we move forward. So I think, what we heard in the current impacts was a little bit down. Obviously, a high percentage felt it was negatively affecting organizations' ability to get funding. It was negatively affecting their time to market, and to some degree threatening financial visibility of their organization. But what we also saw is, looking ahead, and I think the congressman alluded to this as well, that things are looking up. So while it's still a bit rough, and I live down the street from a surgeon who is talked about the same kind of things in terms of surgeries going postponed and things like that, we are looking at it getting better in terms of, and what we're hearing from the survey is that we're expecting things to get better. So 38% of the organizations are saying they expect strong revenue growth as we continue to move forward through 2021 and out of the pandemic. 41% are looking at modest revenue growth, and only 5% were really expecting revenue to shrink. So things are definitely getting better as we look at moving forward through this year and into the future, which is great news, I think, for all of us as we look at, again, trying to really impact the world with what we do in terms of bringing new devices to market or supporting that. So one of the big trends coming out of that we saw is that the world is increasingly getting digital. And what a lot of the survey respondents said is many of us are now relying on technology tools like SharePoint, Dropbox, Google, et cetera, to be able to collaborate, especially on critical documents and process designs and risk management profiles and things like that. And we're leveraging tools like the ones mentioned, or some other kind of document management system. But the challenge that they mentioned with that is those systems, while they're usually easy to get up and going, are fairly low cost, don't provide sufficient access controls in terms of application control, e-signature, audit trail, the things that are required to truly put a non-paper-based quality management or document control system in place. So what's happening is they're putting paper-based quality management processes around what they're now using for document control and collaboration, which is continuing to add inefficiency and compliance risk to the business. So while we need to be more remote and we need more collaboration tools, the first thing the survey respondents brought out is the collaboration tools being used aren't necessarily the best ones when you look at it in terms of supporting the product development and quality teams. So with that, one of the things that the survey brought out, and that many of you said, is there is a tech advantage. And certainly, for those of you that have systems, that you indicated there's an advantage of purpose-built solutions. But what we found, again, is similar to last year's findings, and we kind of alluded to this in the previous slide. Tech maturity still remains stubbornly low in the industry. And roughly half of the respondents say they continue to use general purpose tools, as we mentioned, to support design controls and risk. It was over 50%, and almost 50% said that the same for quality management solutions. So again, still a lot of room in terms of the adoption curve. But what we also heard is for those that are using a medical device quality management system that is not general purpose, they do see significant value. So they're projecting stronger revenue growth. They're more likely to have faith and confidence in the data that has been generated by their quality system and say that it's constantly reliable. They're almost 2 times more likely to demonstrate closed loop traceability, and also almost more than 2 times likely to say that they're very confident that they could pass an unannounced audit because they can demonstrate full product lifecycle traceability from conceptual design all the way through ideation and into post-market surveillance. So again, there are a lot of impact here in terms of the advantages of using a solution. And one other thing we found interesting is the survey respondents also said they're more likely to have a positive impact on securing funding if they have a solution than if they're using a paper-based solution, which is we found interesting, especially given kind of the current conditions in the capital market. So along with that, we got some kind of signals from market leaders in terms of what they're doing to help support their quality processes and how they're helping drive their organizations forward. And one of them is they view quality as a strategic asset. So I thought this was a great quote. One of the survey respondents said, quality management is the glue for the company. It's the business management system And when various processes are not implemented effectively, departments work in silos and it results in poor outcomes and poor performance. And you can see over here that companies that view quality as strategic are highly competitive in a bunch of various areas, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But again, only one in three respondents said they work for a company that views quality as strategic, meaning quality is supported at every level of the organization. So we've heard through the survey it's important. We've also heard through the survey that there's a lot of best practice room to be implemented in terms of companies that view quality as strategic and the importance of that as part of their organization. But the ones that do view it as strategic, and that say their senior leadership is quality focused, are seeing the results of that, as you can see in this chart. So they're almost 50% of them are saying they're highly competitive relative to market peers. They almost 80% said they're more efficient when bringing new devices to market. Again, almost 50% said they're more effective in documenting risk and concept feasibility and managing the entire process from ideation to manufacturing to post-market. And they also said that they use it for more than just traceability. So that it's more than just having the traceability from your design history file all the way to manufacturing, but it's really used as a way to provide closed loop communication, better insights, the ability to really leverage quality as a driver to better process efficiency, and the ability to execute cost takeout measures and things like that as well. So we really do see that quality focused organizations where you get strong support from leadership are much better geared to move into the future than ones that are not, at least from what we're hearing from the survey respondents. So what now, kind of going forward, what did we hear and what does that mean? The first thing is a big next step in the right direction is really addressing the process inefficiencies and dysfunction and really breaking down the silos. And again, through the survey, what we heard is oftentimes the product development process, quality, and the executives are siloed. And what this is causing is wasted labor hours, non-compliance, product development delays, and employee turnover. And what we've seen is oftentimes there's a cost of new technology that kind of pushes companies away from investing in that. But the reality is that cost of new technology and the reliability it brings to data, improved quality systems that you get by breaking down these silos and bringing collaboration and tools together actually has a huge impact on taking the negative things away, like the cost of quality, like wasted labor hours, non-compliance, products getting to market later than anticipated. So there is a real ability here to invest in solutions that help break down the silos and move us in the right direction. And the survey respondents that really talked about moving forward did talk about investing in technology across the technology continuum and really bringing digital transformation and best-in-class tools to their teams. So we found market-leading companies that highlighted all the things we saw in that chart earlier are investing in technology design for medical device companies, and they're gaining efficiency and real-time insight into what's happening. And through that, they're able to make more reliable decisions, drive better process automation, and use things like artificial intelligence and other innovative tools to really help make their processes far more efficient. And they're doing that by investing in technology designed for the medical device industry. So there are lots of technologies out there that you can use to help break down the silos and bring quality management teams together. But the ones that we've found through the survey that are most effective are using tools specifically designed for the industry, with building controls that align to CFR 21 Part 820 and ISO 1385, provide full 21 CFR Part 11 compliance in terms of audit trail and compliant e-signatures, which again was something that we heard some of the collaboration solutions that were quickly put in place as people moved home lack. It has a fully integrated risk capability aligned to ISO 14971. It allows you to easily visualize the relationships of everything that are going on as things are done. So if you're executing a change control, you can easily visualize everything that's impacted and understand what the change and predict what that change might impact, as well as provide full traceability. They provide zero effort in terms of validation when it comes to implementing the system, as well as staying validated as you use the system and as new technology and upgrades come out. And they continue to drive collaboration with the ability to manage tasks, assign those tasks out, notify when they're done, and again, facilitate that collaboration across the entire value chain from product development all the way through to manufacturing and post-market. And they're doing that by partnering with companies that can provide that kind of capability. So they're really looking for partners that not just provide the technology, but the expertise and support in helping you think through how to leverage these tools and get that kind of efficiency that we've talked about. So I think for us, that's a pretty good summary in terms of what we saw through the survey, what our respondents are talking about, and where we're at in the market. And at this point, I know we're getting quick on time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that may have come up through the presentation.
Yeah, Brandon, I know we do have to move on, but the one question I did get, is this survey available on the website if they wanted the full breakdown?
It is. Actually, you can go right here to Greenlight Guru / state of medical device, and you can get the entire full report. It'll show you the full survey, the respondents, the various questions, all of the data is there, and everyone is welcome to it.
Great. Thank you so much, Brandon. And if anyone has additional questions for Brandon, feel free to send them over in the chat and we'll make sure that those get to him since we are going to need to move on. So this is a great time for me to introduce Mike Mandrioli from Thermo Fisher Scientific.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm going to go ahead and pull up mine right now to screen number 3. All right. We get an audio and a video. Good to go. Great. So as Rachel said, my name is Mike Mandrioli, and my title with Thermo Fisher is I'm the industry manager for the Fisher Scientific channel. And today I was asked to talk about some updates in terms of how we're sourcing PPE for our customers and kind of the state of how that's going around the globe as well. So just quick overview of Thermo Fisher. We're at the point where we're at 75,000 employees today. We have a lot of money invested into our research and development of continued new products and services. And with all of the companies that we have under our umbrella, we're now at over 25 billion in revenue. And our mission has always been to enable our customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. And those 3 words are kind of more true today than we could even imagine, right? Especially during the pandemic, our efforts have been very strong to make sure that we're fulfilling that mission. And just so you know where I fall under our umbrella, these are our 6 go-to-market brands that you might know as names that you'd see in any lab around the area in terms of brands that are on products. The Fisher Scientific channel, which I represent, is the channel that's engaged with MassMEDIC through the New England Edge program. And part of that program includes great rebates for customers, as well as extensive pricing and access to the whole MassBio consortium through that New England Edge program. So Fisher Scientific is the one-stop shop for products and services, and then access to all the rest of our portfolio through Thermo Fisher. And the reason I'm here today is one of the product areas that we have continuously delivered to our customers for years and years is our safety portfolio. And in terms of safety products, we're referring mostly to personal protective equipment. And anyone who's been following the COVID situation and watching the news knows that not just in hospitals, but around the world, all different parts of PPE have been either in a shortage or had supply chain issues and not been able to deliver product. So first, I just want to address kind of the economic impact. Much like bread and eggs fly off the shelves during the snowstorm that we're getting here in northwestern Mass, the same thing happens with PPE equipment and any sort of products that are needed for folks to keep their business running. PPE especially, as we're trying to deliver these to frontline workers, it became more and more difficult for folks to source these in their labs to keep folks doing the research or production that they need to be doing. So panic buying has happened, and that of course messes with the supply chain in terms of how the demand is controlled. And when the demand is inflated by large purchase orders are coming from and stemming from this panic buying, it really makes it hard for supply chain efforts to balance the production with how the orders are coming in. And that flow of orders is really important for companies like ours to maintain a normal level of supply and a delivery schedule that works for our customers. As this is happening, plant capacity has changed. You can't have folks more than 6 feet or closer than 6 feet apart on a line. And during production, I mean, I know a lot of the folks in this chat today have probably experienced this at their own production facilities. Keeping people away from each other makes it hard to get through QC. It makes it difficult when you're only putting 50% of the people that can fit in your facility inside. That's happened with a number of these PPE production facilities, as well as their QC lines. An example of this is nitrile gloves. So nitrile gloves, and one of our top providers of nitrile gloves, and many of the other ones from our competitors or anywhere you're buying these gloves, are in Malaysia. The issues that we've been having with Malaysia start with the government regulation. The government of Malaysia is putting a limit on how many shipments they can send out. They're holding product because they don't want it to be in the hands of other folks if they need it on hand themselves. And that, of course, happened because some of their plants have been shut down. I think the news article I was reading the other day said, 16 of the 48 plants from a certain manufacturer in Malaysia were shut down because the plants just had COVID levels of 60 to 70% of their employees were infected. Obviously, they had to completely shut down and make sure that they were getting back to a safe level there. That production trickles down to a lot of the United States suppliers, and we were unable to bring in the product that we needed to get out as a distributor to our customers. And then I will talk about kind of nitrile gloves, which is nitrile butadiene rubber, which is the raw material that if it's protective against oil and fuel and other sorts of organic chemicals, the gloves that you get for food safety are protecting the food from your hands, and it's a very different product. And we think of gloves as gloves, but it is in fact very important that you're using the right glove for the right application. And being able to go and get box store gloves when a customer needs to do that is absolutely encouraged, as long as it's safe for your practice and safe for your application. We encourage to get it anywhere you can. You see gloves at even like CVS, you can buy them now. However, we just want to make sure that we're continuing to monitor our customers' usage and let them know that it is important which glove you're using, just to make sure that everything is being still safe. One of the questions that comes up, and I anticipated this, is why not have Thermo Fisher bring this sourcing into the United States? And it's a very valid point that's gone up the chain, and many of my leadership has talked about this. And as a large company, we're not able to pivot that quickly. I wish we were. In some ways we are, but this is something that's still ongoing, and it's a conversation that I've continued to monitor closely to make sure that if we are able to open up some sort of factory where we're making this nitrile butadiene rubber at home, it's a great opportunity for us. I went a little too far. The last thing I wanted to touch on, we talked about economic impact of panic buying. We talked about some of the example of plant closings and how social distancing affects the ability of companies to continue a normal level of production. Something else that's going on is this bidding war for the actual raw material. And this, I'm talking about specifically nitrile here, but it also happens for different sorts of plastics that are needed for disinfectant sprays or for gowns, any sort of protecting equipment. A lot of them come from the same sort of natural materials. And for nitrile specifically, as a supplier, the supplier partners that we have, like Ansell or Kimberly-Clark, they're seeing like hundreds of percentage points of increases on their raw material pricing. And the only way that they can operate as a functioning business is to pass on some of that cost to the distributors like Fisher. And Fisher as a company has decided to continue to work with our customers to make sure we're pricing things fairly. The term price gouging is thrown around a lot today, and it's simply not a practice that our company really takes part in. We work very closely with our suppliers to make sure that we are paying a fair price to them and offering a fair price to our customers as well, especially those who are part of our New England Edge consortium. So any pricing questions, please reach out to any of your Thermo Fisher day-to-day contacts. I didn't put my name on this presentation, but you can reach out to me in the chat, or I'll go ahead and put my email in the chat so you can reach out to me. One of the other things, suppliers can't hold their pricing for very long, creates this inconsistent market pricing across the industry. I'll jump back to just a couple of COVID-19 updates from Thermo Fisher in general. This website up at the top, you just Google Thermo Fisher COVID updates, it'll come up. It's a great way to stay in the loop of what we're doing and how we're enabling the Massachusetts medical device community and our MassMEDIC membership to keep things going. And I put down here another note about reaching out to your day-to-day contacts, because that's really the best way to get engaged with us and make sure that we're continuing to deliver product where we're able to do so. And that's all I have as far as a quick little slide deck, but please feel free to reach out to me. I'll take questions right now if we have time, Rachel.
We are running right up on time, but I think that was a really great overview of kind of what's going on. And as you said, to reach out to you, Mike will put his email address in the.
I'll do it right now.
And also, if you have questions, you can reach out to Brian or I, and we will make sure to connect you. But this is something that obviously we want you to be taking full advantage of the connection with the New England Edge. So please, if you have questions, reach out to us about that. But thank you so much, Michael.
Thanks for having me, Rachel.
Absolutely. Okay, Anthony DeMaio, we are giving you a lightning round right now. You've got a few minutes to give us some critical PPP updates.
Okay, I will try to be as quick as possible. Can you, Rachel, see this?
Yes, we can hear and see you.
Okay, great. So yeah, Anthony DeMaio, ML Strategies. I work with MassMEDIC, and have been following some of the relevant stimulus provisions that some or all of you may be able to apply, and we can get through them, I think, pretty quickly here. Most of you are familiar with the Paycheck Protection Program from the CARES Act last year. At the end of 2020, it was extended to allow for a second loan to eligible borrowers. You'll see the key dates on your screen. They're now open for applications, and the application deadline for second draw loans or first draw for those of you who did not apply but now might be eligible or want to in the first place, those are due March 31st. So what is a first draw PPP loan? It was, as I said, allowed by the CARES Act last year and very, very popular. But the end of 2020 omnibus bill made some changes to it that are even more popular. So eligibility was expanded to include some 501c6 organizations. More importantly for this group, additional expenses are now allowed. So initially your calculation could not include things like operations expenditures. It now can. So if you haven't got forgiveness yet for your first one, you can even go worker protection, including PPE, is now a, oh God. Hey, Rachel, are you losing me?
So we did for a second, but you are back.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yes, you're good.
So PPE is now an allowable expense. For increased flexibility, borrowers can now select their own covered period rather than the sort of rigid 8-week period that initially came with the CARES Act. It's more flexible anytime between 8 and 24 weeks after you get the loan. Again, if you want to get a first draw loan or extend the first draw loan you got, you have until the end of March to apply. Second draw loans. These are for borrowers that already got a loan in the first go around, have 300 or fewer employees, and can prove a 25% reduction in gross receipts in comparable quarters 19 and 20. You'll see that if you're paying attention closely, the threshold for employees has dropped to 300, and they now have a firm 25% reduction in receipts, not profit, to be eligible for the second go around. Same calculation basically, except for the extended expenses. Your second draw loan will be 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, and that can be from a period in 2019 or 2020 up to a maximum loan of $2 million. There is a new application form though for the second draw. Rachel has it. If you need it, she can send it to you. It's also available on the SBA website. Additional eligibility criteria we just went over. Again, 300 employees, you must be able to prove a 25% reduction. You can do that with tax forms. You can do it with monthly P&Ls. Basically, you have to prove it to your lender. So there isn't sort of a blanket documentation requirement from the SBA. It's as long as your bank is satisfied, then you're eligible. Some kind of important changes that were made to the whole program at the end of the year that have actually gotten very popular. Those economic injury disaster loan advances of $10,000 that some of you may have received last year were initially deducted from the forgiveness calculation for a PPP loan. That's no longer the case. So that $10,000 check does not count against the forgiveness for your PPP loan, and it won't for your second draw. A big point of contention with the way that the PPP loans were treated by the IRS last year, or at least they had been floated, the expenses that you cover with those funds initially were not, even if they were typically deductible business expenses, were not going to be allowed to be deducted. That has now changed. So they no longer consider that a double dip. The forgiven PPP loan is not taxable income, nor does it prohibit you from deducting those expenses from your taxes. What is this? Expanded forgivable expenses of personal. Yeah. Oh, as you probably know, and this might apply to some of you, there was a simplified application released in October for forgiveness of loans of $50,000 or less. The bill in December extended that, so there will be an easy forgiveness application for all loans of $150,000 or less. They tripled that threshold in the December bill. So if you have a smaller end PPP loan, either in the first or second draw, you'll have an easier time filling out that forgiveness application. So these are the next steps. If you are interested and you think you're eligible for a second draw loan, best thing to do is contact your lender. If you took a first draw loan, the best place to go is back to that bank, if at all possible. Again, these loans are not cut by the SBA; they're just guaranteed by the SBA. So you want to go through a bank with whom you have an existing commercial lending relationship, if possible. If you don't have one, or for some reason your lender either isn't participating anymore or went out of business or something, there are tools both on the SBA website, Lender Match. You'll see there, sba.gov/lender match. There are also sort of financial technology companies out there like Smart Biz Loans, that will match a borrower with an SBA participating lender. So there are resources out there if you don't for some reason have the ability to go back to your lender. And for more detailed guidance or to I think there's FAQ documents and others, go to the SBA website, sba.gov/PPP, and that'll give you pretty much everything you need to probably internally determine your eligibility. There are also a couple of offices in Massachusetts. Theoretically, these numbers are staffed full-time, even during the pandemic. In practice, these offices have just been absolutely swamped. So I'm not sure if someone picks up the phone, but it's worth trying if you need help. That is what they're there for. In Boston, it's 565-5590. And out in the western part of the state, you can call the Springfield office, 413-785-0408. I'm going to pause here because although I do have another bit, I wanted to make sure, okay, none of these are questions. Okay, fine. So we'll go to the last slide here. This is not PPP related directly. In fact, this probably has wider utility for this audience, including companies that are too big or otherwise not eligible for PPP loans. The bill in December expanded something known as the Employee Retention Tax Credit, which was originally created by the CARES Act. Same bill that created the PPP created this tax credit for all companies, regardless of size. It changed in December in a couple of notable ways. Perhaps most importantly, it was an either or after the CARES Act. You could either claim the tax credit or apply and receive a PPP loan. Now you can do both. You can't double dip. The wages paid by the PPP loan aren't eligible to count against the tax credit, but you can avail yourself of both. Also importantly, the original credit created by the CARES Act was for wages paid to employees between March 12th, when the bill was released, not passed, and the end of 2020. That's now been extended to through the first 2 quarters of 2021. Also importantly, for these first 2 quarters of 2021, the credit is increased from the original 50% of qualified wages to 70% of qualified wages. And rather than what was true in 2020, where the employee's allowable wage was only $10,000 for the year, it is now $10,000 for the quarter. So in short, you were allowed to get a credit of up to $5,000 last year, 50% of $10,000 per employee. You're now going to be eligible for $14,000. That's 70% of $10,000 per quarter. Also, originally you had to prove gross receipt decline of 50% to be eligible for the credit. That threshold has been relaxed to just 20%. There's other sort of notable and important changes to this, and I know that a lot in this community have been, maximizing this credit. So just make sure you're working with your tax professional and accountants to be in compliance and maximize it, because this is probably the biggest thing that's going to come for entities that are not eligible for PPP loans. We are looking at it, or I should say Congress is looking at it again for this first bill coming in 2021, and maybe some other mechanisms, but this has got a lot of good reactions, so I think it's here to stay throughout the pandemic. You just want to make sure that you're doing whatever necessary to maximize it. And Rachel, I can't see everything. I don't know if I have run up against the time or if I've kind of.
Yeah, no, you're good. got a few questions coming in that I was able to answer for a couple small groups that are trying to understand the gross receipts, and I think that's probably something we can chat a little bit more offline on how particular are they about that and what's included, what's not included. For example, if a company received grant funding, does that count, but didn't receive grant funding because of the following year, different kinds of programs. So I think that's something we can talk about offline, because we are right up on time. So I think this is probably a great point to say, thank you. And for additional questions, please reach out to Brian or I, and we'll connect you with Anthony if you have questions about loans and all those resources from the SBA. We'll make the presentation available. Absolutely take advantage of all these programs, and anything that we can do to help, we will absolutely do. So thank you, Anthony. Thank you to Greenlight Guru. Thank you, Thermo Fisher, for joining us for this awesome program. And thanks, everyone. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.